I want to take a second at the beginning of this to apologize for my audio quality. Stever sounds absolutely fine. I recorded strangely this time, and I do not know why. And then there was some background noise I had to remove. And by the time I'd done that and amplified myself and minimized Stever's volume to the best of my ability, I sound pretty terrible during most of this. And my volume's all over the place, often quite quiet, other times very loud. So I'm, again, sorry for that. I edited out the less relevant parts of myself speaking as much as I could. But bear with me, I still think there's some good stuff in here worth listening to. So without any further ado, we will get started. So welcome to another Brewster podcast. This is Ted Schmidt again. I'm sure you're all tired of hearing me, but welcome. Thanks for listening. And today I have Kyle Stever, who's going to talk about the off-season trades, and if we have time, maybe some of last season's trades as well. Thanks for doing this, Kyle, on kind of short notice.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Always fun.
Yeah, it is nice to have you here. It's a little bit of a different take than me and Tyler, who I think we do an okay job on these, but it's nice to have a different voice every now and again.
Well, I am nothing if not a dissonant voice.
Well, so am I. The weird thing is that I think you and I disagree on some, a little bit more on trades than Tyler and I do, which is odd because you and I build similar teams. Like I don't build teams like Tyler does at all, but he and I seem to feel the same about trades. Whereas you and I, because I finally saw the light after you browbeating all of us about not valuing left-handed bats and pitchers enough. And my teams look more similar to yours now, but you and I, don't really agree on trades that much. I mean, we're not way off. But,
yeah. Well, one of these days you'll be right.
I'm never right. Like this is an exercise in giving people something to listen to about the thing they did and to have feedback. Because realistically, so many of these trades work out way differently. Somebody lumps, somebody gets hurt. One of the prospects that everybody's like, oh yeah, he doesn't matter, goes on a tear and bumps 5 times. So
yeah, but I don't think that's fair though. Because I mean, even if a prospect lumps, right? At the time the trade was made, he had a certain value. And if you didn't achieve reciprocal value at that time, the luck or unluck afterwards of what happens with the prospect has nothing to do with that.
That's good. I mean, you're right. That's a good point. I guess it's more. It's not so much that we're wrong about grading the trade. It's that it's more that even if you make what people view as a bad trade, sometimes it still works out. That doesn't mean you should keep making them. But
right. Yeah, it's like poker. You win a hand with an inside straight, but don't do that a lot.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. When I look at these, and I think you do too, there's kind of two ways. There's the value differential in the trade, and then there's sometimes that value differential is fine, but it makes perfect sense, or it's not fine, it looks bad, but it makes perfect sense for the organization. So it's like, okay, they gave up a little bit much, but that's what they needed. It's fine. So I think you do have to kind of look at those two facets differently. If you get stuck on, I have to trade, X amount of apples for X amount of apples, and that's all I'll ever do, and those, it has to be exactly the equivalent. You're not going to make a lot of trades. Random thoughts that don't make sense. I didn't do any grades. I don't know if you did grades. I decided recently with Tyler to kind of dispense with them because it seems like we just give out lots of B's and C's and an occasional A, and it's all really predictable. And I think it's more interesting to talk about what we like and don't like.
Yeah, I didn't do grades. I kind of decided who the ephemeral winner of each one was.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
So did you? I think you said in the email you started the same spot that I did with San Fernando, Des Moines, the Buck Moreland trade. Is that what you?
Yeah. Let's start with that.
You want to go back and forth, you take one, I take one, or I can.
Sure. Yeah. If you don't mind, I'll take this one because I kind of have a strong feeling about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think I just said I picked winners of each trade, and I also put a note on whether it was a marginal or a blowout. And this was in the blowout category for me. I think San Fernando just made a brilliant trade. So you look at Moreland, and he hasn't dropped any ratings whatsoever. He is still the same guy he's always been. It just so happens he had a bad year last year. So before last year, he had 7 out of 8 seasons with over a 900 OPS straight, and then last year he had an 827. So but it's also explained because his BABIP last year was 45 points below his career average. So this is just a classic selling a great asset at its bare minimum, lowest value that it's had in its probably lifetime of existence. And I just don't like the guys he got back either. So on one hand, you shouldn't have sold him to begin with because you were never going to get the right value for him because he came off his worst year ever. And two, I just don't like what he got. Like Sanderson and Guerra, you could argue he saved money over the long run, but not this season. Guerra and Sanderson cost the same. And as much as I love Turtle, he's not the same guy, and Garrett isn't either. He has less than one WAR aggregate over the past 2 years.
That's
and then the prospect. Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, you're just taking the words right out of my mouth. I mean, I said the exact same thing. Sanderson, just to kind of go farther on that, he's been league average or worse for the last 5 years, and Garrett is essentially a replacement level player now, making $7 million.
Yeah. Well, one's a right-hand bat with 5 contacts, so you can probably guess what I think about him. And that's Williamson. I just don't think he's going to make a career at all. Like bench piece, right-handed platoon. That's the future I see for him. And I like Coronado. He redeems the deal a little bit, but he's 18. He's really raw. And he's probably, at best a number 3, but probably a number 4 at full potential.
Right.
What do you think of those two guys?
No, I think the same things. I think Des Moines might like. I think I like Coronado, and I probably like him a little more than you do because I feel like I have a little bit more liking for right-handed starters than you do. I expect him more to be a number 3, but I can totally see what you're saying. I completely agree on Williamson. Williamson at the time of the trade was, I think, 5.47 or 5.48 maybe. And Des Moines might luck out here because Williamson has bumped his power all the way up to 6. And if he ends up 5 contact, 7 power, 9 eye, that's probably a starter. He's going to strike. He's not going to hit for high average, but like you were saying, that's the player he would have lucked into, not what he would have gotten at the time of the trade. And the guy at the time of the trade really looked like a bench bat. Unless sometimes I will trade for guys that I looked at and said, "Hey, I think this guy's already bumping and going to continue, and I'll take a gamble." But I'm not sure I would have made that call. I don't know what call I'd made, but I'm not sure I would have made that call based upon how he looked at the time.
Right.
I agree with everything you said on this one.
So I agree with that concept of trying to find, the guys trending up, but I use those guys as throw-ins. I don't use them as centerpieces for one of the best power bats in the league.
Right, and I agree. And the thing about Moreland, what we don't know about Moreland is that contact's now a low 8, used to be a high 8. We don't know that, but I agree. It doesn't really look like he's lumped at all. I don't remember what he used to be like against left-handed pitching. He's looking a little marginal there now. And I feel like I remember one of the big deals with Moreland being that his platoon split wasn't so horrible. And it's not great now, so I don't know how much he's fallen off there or not. But I agree. It's the other thing about it that was questionable to me is looking at Des Moines' roster, I don't know who the replacement is. It's like it'd be one thing if they had some 22-23-year-old first baseman that was just way too good for AAA. You needed to be on the roster, and Moreland was replaceable. But this just seems like you said, just selling a guy at the lowest.
Yeah, you definitely didn't need to make room for Luna and Carter. Right. I definitely agree with you there. Carter might have looked good as a platoon with Moreland, maybe.
Right.
Although I'd probably just start Moreland even against left-handed bats, to be honest.
Yeah, I might. So we agree on this one. We're just throwing that under the bus right off the bat here. But maybe Williamson will just, like I said, explode. This won't come back to haunt Des Moines. Who knows? The other thing is that if Moreland, let's say that Moreland's decline last year was due to sliding in his ratings that we couldn't see, I find that less likely. And you pointed out with the BABIP, but that's just not going to do that again. Or it's unlikely that he's going to continue to do that. That's probably just like you said, it's just an aberrant year and it'll get better. But if he does, that contract's now looking a little long and ugly. And he's got like 6.
Yeah, but it's not that much. What's he making?
Well, it's not
11.7 million. I mean,
the price is fantastic. It's if he's about to hit the lump monster, it's a problem. But,
yeah, right. But he hasn't shown signs.
No.
And even if he did slip a little, his career BABIP is 314, and he had a 2.7 last year. So let's say that slipped to 300. Well, it's still 30 points under that.
Right.
So 30 points of BABIP is going to be, 20 points of average, which is 40 points of OPS. So now he's a high 800 OPS again.
Which is still worth that.
Yeah. Right.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah, if Rutledge is worth 5 times 10, Moreland's definitely worth 5 times 11.
Well, I think you're right. I'm just trying to find some silver lining here. I might ask you to take the next one because I know why I made the trade, but I'd like to get your thoughts on my trade with New Orleans for the Jose Leyva for Raul Fernandez. And we talked about this. Yep. So to everybody else out in the league, I ask the same 5 or 6 GMs about deals, and whoever responds, I take their advice. I have no shame in going to someone and being like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" I try to avoid people who are would be directly involved or direct competitors, but I think it's a great habit to get into when you're not sure. If you're sure, yeah, just go do it. But if you're ever thinking about something, just find somebody's opinion you trust and bounce ideas off. Well, yeah, I don't know. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, so when we talked about it, I gave you the positive on the trade. I thought you should go through with it. Leyva's an interesting prospect for sure. He's got great defense. Got interesting ratings. If he was a left-hand bat, you might like him more. But I'm trying to suppress my my prejudices for this podcast. But he is. I'm not going to suppress my prejudice against his minus split showing versus right-hand pitching because that is a big concern for me. Yeah, he is very raw, obviously. So he's in that low percentage territory as a 17-year-old that's real raw. But let's say he completely fills out, right? And develops. His split right now is only going to get exacerbated, I imagine. So let's say he ends up 8, 7, 3 against right-hand bats, right? Or right-hand pitching. That's solid, but it's not exciting. And I just think it's tough for a guy with a poor eye to really excel, because so if you imagine he's a 300 hitter. Right, so he's already got a 600 OPS just from that, right? And if you imagine he's a 200 ISO hitter, let's say, which by the way, that would be a 500 slugging. That's pretty close to a top 100 single season slugging in league history. Number 99 is 535. So this is a pretty art pie in the sky estimate right now. 300 average, 200 ISO. But he's only going to get 20 points on his OBP from his eye.
Right.
So you're sitting at an 820 OPS there with a slugging percentage that's threatening, a top 100 in league history for a single season.
Right. And with his defense, though, that's still probably a 4.5, 5 player.
Oh, yeah.
But how long does that last, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's the other thing with these guys. How long? Speed and defense don't age nearly as well as being a selective guy that takes a lot of pitches.
Right. But no, he's an interesting prospect. But Hernandez, I'm pretty excited about, if I'm being honest. We just talked about trying to get guys on the upward trend, and he's rating-wise definitely been on the upward trend. 3 years ago, he was a 5.65, and now he's a 9.10.5 or 7.10.5 potential. He's still only 22, almost fully developed. And even if he doesn't bump at all anymore, I mean, he's still going to end up with 7 contact and 10 power against right-hand pitching. That's a pretty good DH. I like him a lot. So, I think it might be one of those trades where, you're looking, he's already in your majors. So you were looking for something right now. New Orleans is rebuilding. He was looking for, a high upside, prayer. And that's what Leyva is. So I think it's a pretty fair deal.
Yeah, I think that's about, and that's what I thought with it. I actually went to Jim and asked if I'd be interested in giving me Yancey Cravat for Leyva and Ojeda and Reyes, just all three of them. And Vito Reyes is a 6'8" lefty who's probably a starter, might have to end up being a reliever, just due to what was it? His verse right split's a little dramatic, but I think if he fills out all the way, he'll be fine. But he wasn't sure he wanted to move Cravat yet, and we ended up with this, and I'm okay with it. The one thing I don't like is that he was not sure initially if he wanted Ojeda or Leyva. Ojeda, for the people listening, was when he was drafted was an eight con. He's a right-handed, probably not a third baseman, but maybe definitely a left fielder. Right-handed, 8 contact, 10 power, 7 I, 7 ABK. And since the time of this trade, both of them had lumped like a little bit, just a teensy bit. And that was my big reason for moving them, is it was like, some of these guys lump once, and then they're done, they're fine. Other ones, just once they start to lump, it's over. Leyva seems to be holding on, whereas the guy I kept is on his way to Garbageville. Like, he's lumped 2 more times since then. That's always what happens. These guys are interesting. If you look at the top prospects in the league right now, remember a few years back, I think this was right before you left, when the top 100 prospects was goofy because it was all quad A guys, like they overweighted guys that were developed. Remember that at all?
It's ringing a bell a little bit, like maybe when the version change happened or something.
Right, and now we've gone totally the other way, where it's all 17-year-olds with high potentials and they haven't developed at all. Like, if you look at I don't know what to make of it. Like, we're continuing what some people have noticed in OTP, which is like a slow drift of the ratings upwards and upwards and upwards. And it's almost getting ridiculous. There are like, you remember when a 10 power potential used to be a big deal. There are like 15 batters with 10 or greater. There's like 5 with 11 power in the top 100 prospects. Now, probably none of them are going to get there, but it's just weird to look at. Like, I don't know what to make of it, and it makes scouting people's farm systems hard because you look at their top prospects and it's all these 16 and 17-year-olds that aren't developed at all, and it just seems goofy. And of course, I think we all have the bias that none of our own guys develop and everyone else's players do, but that's just the way it always feels.
Well, so I kind of prefer that dichotomy, to be honest. Like, I really hated the era of OOTP, where you went into the draft and there was like 10 pretty good prospects, and then everybody else was kind of like trashy. I'd rather like have 3 fun rounds of the draft and then know that, you're going to have a really high flame out rate. It's more exciting. Something more to look forward to. The rebuilding teams have more shots at getting someone that's worthwhile. I just think it's overall just a better way to go. And it's more realistic too, right? Like, you go in the MLB draft and, there's guys in the 25th round that, some of the bigger,
I like the model
fans
better.
Are getting excited about.
I just wish the ceilings weren't so high on these guys. Like, if you had the same number of players, but you just knocked the point off and you made it maybe a little less likely. Like, what I've noticed with a lot of the IFA signings and some of these scout finds is the scout finds seem to be the best in terms of development of these super high weirdos. But there seem to be guys who lump like 1 point across the board, and then that's where they end up. They just take that mechanism out and start them out one lower. I would rather. I just don't like seeing all these 11 powers, and maybe that's just the rating. Maybe that's not OTP. That's just, it is OTP, but maybe it's just that slow upwards ratings drift. But it just, like, when you're getting to the point where like 10 powers first baseman are just a dime a dozen in people's systems, it just doesn't seem right. It's I don't know, but whatever. Okay. Las Vegas Twin Cities. So I don't really understand this trade at all. I don't think it's bad for either team. It's just kind of weird. Las Vegas got Richard Wishart, and Twin Cities got Alistair Greaves. And the best I can think is maybe this is just a change of scenery thing for both of them. Greaves is probably a high 5, low 6 motion who goes back and forth there, but I mean, the split makes him look more like a rookie. He's not been very good. He's young. He's an older young player, if that makes any sense. He should be a guy who's hitting his prime, and he's never really worked, settled in. And then Wishart, this is, again, the bias you and I were talking about, but it's hard for me to be excited about right-handed first basemen unless they're really, really good. And fully developed, this guy is kind of 7 contact, okay, ABK, and whether or not you think it's realistic, OTP is not friendly to those guys. He'll kill lefties, and he will crush lefties. I'm not really excited about his bat either. And the other weird thing about him is, why hasn't he played more? Like, he's 27, and I know he was like a late bumper / bloomer developer, but like, it just seems like Twin Cities has given him 120 at bats, and they're just giving up on the guy. I don't know.
Yeah, something is good enough, I kind of had the same feeling as you in my, who won. I wrote push, irrelevant.
Right.
Because I just don't think either guy is going to factor heavily. You got a Rugi reliever and a right-handed DH platoon bat.
Right. They're those weird guys that kind of look like both of them could be trap picks if they were in the draft. The ratings make them look better than they are. Neither one of them's really that big of a deal. Okay, so next one. I took Calgary Madison. I have some thoughts about this. Do you mind if I grab this one?
Sure, go for it.
I hate Noonien Soon. I think he's. You don't. I think he's worth talking about. Like, at the guy's peak, he was like 7.79, and in ways that might make you think you see a starter. But and I'm not like one of the big guys on actual pitches, other than like, okay, curveball, slider, they're going to have a Bethune split. I like cutters. I like changeups because you can get either even or even a reverse Bethune split, which I like to see. Sinkers, you got to think about, like, is there velocity lumps, and their sinker lumps, they're going to lose motion. Those guys can flame out really fast. But, like, if you have a fastball, you're going to throw a fastball. And maybe OOTP's catching up with real life where you got guys throwing their breaking stuff more than fastballs. But even those guys throw their fastball, at worst, 45% of the time. And his fastball's 5. And it's never been higher than that. It's always been 5. And he's not any good. And he's never been any good. Like, he's got to... He's got to...
I have to disagree with you there, man. He's a pretty steady, low 4 FIP. I mean...
His career FIP's 4.65. It's not like it's like 4.3.
Mid 4 FIP.
I don't know, man. I don't like this guy. I like that we're disagreeing. I just don't like him. Can we agree that he's not a difference maker? That, like, he's a number 4, number 3, 4, like 4 starter, right? He's a guy that, like...
Yeah, he's a 3-4 starter. I definitely don't have the visceral... I know you're a power pitcher guy.
Right. And this
I
screws
really
my
don't
biases.
mind
So.
junk ballers. Yeah, I've had... junk ballers never end up being like... even when they have great ratings, like a, 6.99 or something, they never end up being, in the Nebraska hunt or something. But they end up being, steady and reliable. They seem like they don't have the highs and lows that, the guys that rely on strikeouts do. Just in my, anecdotal experience, I feel like a steady mid-rotation hand,
I think that's,
there's good junk ballers.
I think that's maybe fine. And, like I said, Noonien Soon is not a pitcher I want. But you're right, I do have my biases. I'm power pitching. I was talking to Randy earlier, and he asked me about a pitcher, and I was like, dude, I don't trade pitchers. And he's like, I know, but you have so many. And I was like, yeah, but I just put them in the bullpen. Like, I don't like having number 5 starters in my 5th spot. I like to have someone else's number 3 starter in my 5th spot. So, I'm probably being a little bit of a dick soon, but I just don't like him. He's just not somebody I'd ever want. He's not expensive, but a lot of it, I still don't like this trade. And the reason I don't like this is Nobuo Judah is probably a better pitcher than Soon. Like, if he develops, and it looks like he will, he's 20. He's in good shape to develop. He's a lefty. He just looks like a better pitcher. And then Torres probably is going to end up being a loogie. Could end up being a everyday middle relief type. And the big reason I don't like this deal for Madison is Madison, to me, recently has made a bunch of kind of Band-Aid moves. where they've traded talented young developing prospects away for like things to patch their rotation and like shift their defense around because they had some defensive issues. And it just seems like they're getting a lot of older, declining, ineffective players for like talented young kids. And while sometimes that's the right move to make, I don't think it's worked out. Like, looking at the teams of this division, even losing everything they lost, I still think Yellow Springs is better than he is, and Twin Cities is better than he is, and Omaha is definitely the front runner for that division. And it's just timing for this one. Even if the talent going either way is fair, it is.
Yeah, that was one of my takeaways too. Is that they won 69 games last year, and they did a lot of patchwork moves, and this was one of them. And just feels like, you probably didn't want to give in this particular situation. You probably didn't want to give up prospect talent for an expiring, back of the rotation starter. I will say though, as much as I like Judah as well, but I think if he puts together 5 straight years with 2 to 3 WAR at some point in his career, like Soon did, I think he'll, feel pretty lucky. I don't know if he's going to be quite as good as Soon.
Take a look at Ernie Kinney and tell me what you see as a difference between those two.
What did his name was?
Ernie Kinney. He's on San
Fernando. San Fernando. Well, they're just weird, man. They always have pitchers that I think are trash.
It's okay. Randy's a secret genius.
All right, yeah, Kinney looks very similar. Okay. I mean, he's got more pitches. He's got a cutter-slider combo, which I think is like a cheat code.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
But yeah, he's doing pretty good. Do they have like a pitcher's park or something? I'm really...
San Fernando has a goofy park. San Fernando plays in the Polo Grounds mock-up. So it's more or less a pitcher's park, but you can, like, if you're a huge pull hitter, you can rip home runs. So they're a weird park. I don't know what to make of them.
Okay.
I also don't know how Randy wins any games with his pitching staffs. So although they've been better the last couple of years, they've been legitimately decent. But I just can't. We all have our biases, and he doesn't care about control. I just don't know how it works. I just throw a bunch of guys and walk everybody. It doesn't matter. Whatever. All right. So we have the same kind of thoughts on that. Why don't you take the next one, San Fernando, Nashville? I want to see if you agree about this.
Yeah, I'm going to go on a limb and say we probably do if I know you. I think, San Fernando, crushed this one again.
No controversies.
But we just... Oh, you agree?
I totally agree.
Yeah, well, we just talked about his weird pitchers. I'm not going to hold my breath for Leon Ramirez being continuing his magic outside of San Fernando. And you look at his career, and he sucked in Brooklyn. So, well, I guess he was young, so I won't hold that too much against him. But yeah, the stuff they gave up for him too is just Saucedo and Gracia. They're not good. So let's just not talk about them. So it's really, Ramirez for Perales and Dominic. Perales, he's a right-hand pitch with 6 movement. So, personally, I'm not high on him. But I think he's a bit, gun to my head, I'd take him over Ramirez today.
At worst, he's every bit as good, right? That's the thing about this that doesn't make sense to me is why, if you believe that Leon Ramirez is what he's done in San Fernando, that's fine. But he's 27 now, and what he's done in San Fernando is being marginally better than league average and not gotten hurt, which is valuable. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to have 3 or 4 of those guys in your rotation, like league average guys that can throw innings, that's fine. But they're good when they're cheap, not when they're 27's not old, but he's going to be a free agent, and I think he's asking for $10 million a year. And I'm not going to pay a back end of the rotation starter, more than maybe 5. Whereas Perales,
he's already making 5.5. So
right,
Perales
has all his control left, and I just fail to see how he would throwing Ramirez over Perales is any kind of an advantage. Although he is a douche, and I don't know how that'll work out. Like some of those guys, that are just have every personality rating is orange. Like some of them are just terrible. So I agree with that.
Yeah, it's not that hard to drop 50 points on just getting him out of the douche state.
Just fix one of them.
Right. He's a prototypical relief conversion candidate too. If he doesn't work out as a starter, probably end up with 11 stuff.
And then
maybe 12.
Semanik, I believe was like Randy converted him, but he was like an 8-7-8 starter with I think a kind of stuck-ish change, like a 3 change. That hadn't been working out. And again, though, he hasn't thrown 150 innings. It just seems a little early to give up on a guy who don't even RP convert him. Just throw him in the pen and switch him to relief status and see what you can get out of him.
If I remember right, his third pitch, he only had 3 pitches, and the changeup was stuck, like you said. So he probably didn't get that much out of converting him. But, just taking a reliever and making him a starter, especially when he doesn't have a good third pitch, is going to give him 2 stuff just by itself, So I think it was time to give up on him as a starter, but not as a pitcher. And he is the best piece in this deal, I think. And San Fernando's going to enjoy him, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and this one bums me out because I had made myself an enemy of Brett to replace my old Brett enemy, which I think is fantastic. But the last couple times around, I feel like I had not been as much of a dick and not as critical. He's putting together a good team. Nashville's starting to look pretty. They're coming out of it, but then I just can't. I don't feel good about this trade. I can't pretend I do. I mean, I guess I could pretend I do. It'd be a lie to say I can't. I can pretend a lot of things, but I don't feel good about this trade.
Yeah.
I won't pretend I do. Okay. Cool. So Brooklyn, Jacksonville. Jacksonville got one. Jose Fuentes. There's not a lot to talk about here. I'm just going to ramble through this really quick and let you do the next one. Brooklyn was looking to RP convert a guy. They wanted to convert Juan Jose Fuentes. Well, he wouldn't have been a great conversion. Jacksonville said, "Hey, I've got this guy that's a better conversion. Give me that pitcher. I'd rather have him." And so they converted Jose Torres. He'll be an alright conversion. And Jacksonville got, unfortunately, Fuentes is lumped a little bit. He was 8.76, which is kind of a cheap last place starter. And they would have been happy with that. I don't know if they still are. But that's it. That's the whole deal. It's not exciting. I thought it was fair.
Yeah. I had to push irrelevant again on this one, too.
Okay.
It was a 7th reliever for a 6th starter.
Right. Yeah. So, that's good. Well, the next one's you. You want me to try this, or do you want to talk about your own trade?
No, you go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So, you made a deal with Long Beach, and Long Beach got Dusty McPetrie, and you got Bernardino Torrelade, and Peter, I have no idea. Peter Reedhaver? Who knows? So, my initial thoughts when I looked at this is I don't care about any of these players. But if you look at it a little bit more, they're a little better. They could manage a little bit. McPetrie's probably an okayish reliever. Seventh reliever, 6th, 7th reliever. And Torlade doesn't really have a defensive position, but who knows? He's kind of an old-ish lottery ticket. And you got this is basically a Stever deal. You traded a right-handed reliever for a left-handed reliever and a left-handed bat. And I think you might get something out of the guy, out of Dieter, whose last name I refuse to try to say again. But he could be margin. He could be like a 5th. Sound about right?
Yeah. I like him. I mean, he's 9.75 potential with no, split showing, and he's left-hander. 5th reliever and a good bullpen is probably a fair assessment. But mostly, I just didn't want to look at McPetrie's face anymore.
with his too big goatee.
And, well, no. So I mean, it's my fault that he had to start games last year. But still,
it was so bad that you just didn't.
And he ruined my season. He ruined my season because of me. But I still irrationally am allowing myself to blame him.
So instead of sweeping this under the rug, you're sweeping it away entirely, just removing
I'm sweeping it, across the nation. Yeah.
Nice. No, that's fair. Just get rid of that mountain range in between the two of you and never think about it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, passes. Everybody's like, they said they were going to skip the boring ones, but the boring ones all involve you and me, so we're going to talk about them. You want to take Wichita, Brooklyn?
Yeah, sure. So I think Wichita won this pretty, maybe not handily, but, pretty tangibly. So I look at Fourier, right? And, it's pretty clear to me that his future is a right-handed platoon or backup catcher. And, that's not an invaluable thing or unvaluable thing, except it seems like every single season there's like half a dozen of those dudes who sit on free agency forever and end up going for cheap. In fact, there's one right now, Alan McHugh, who is better than Fourier, and he's sitting on the free agent market.
He's a terrible defender.
I don't think so, but I'll check them.
I'll check. You were talking. I'll look while you're talking.
Okay, sure. But batting wise, McHugh's a 6'7", 10 against left-hand pitch, and Fourien's a 6'5", 9. So I mean, 2 power and 1 eye. Pretty clearly, in my opinion, McHugh's better. So it's just the kind of asset you can just get for free, basically every year if you want it. And Toronto, he's a pretty good prospect. He's 9'7" as a right-hander. I have a prospect like that, who I'm pretty excited about. So it'd be hypocritical for me not to be excited about Toronto. He's another 3-4 tweener in a rotation, I think. He still needs his curveball to develop a little. He's still 24 for a couple more months. Yeah, it's just it feels like you got a well-developed, solid pitching prospect for.
This is neat because we got to one where we disagree. I can't find McHugh. The person I see out there is Alberto Padilla, who is 5'8", 9 with 6 catcher ability, 7 arm, kind of a 3-star. You know what? I think the star ratings have actually gotten better again. I know some people don't like him. I do. What I use him for, not so much is to track how good a player is, but if they're going up and down, the potential is going up and down, concerns me. But anyway, Padilla's only asking for $2.4 million. The one thing here that I think makes this trade a little bit something that's a little bit Brooklyn's had no money, so they couldn't have signed somebody. They had to trade, and I disagree with you in that I kind of like Fourier, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like if you prorate his achievements thus far over about 500 plate appearances, he's a 2-win catcher. He's got a 365 on base percentage for his career. And I'm sure that's in a platoon role, so he'll take a lump when he has to face more righties. But
yeah, look at his at bats every year. 188, 167, 107. It's clearly he's been a platoon, and he looks like a solid platoon option. Sure,
he is. But the reason I kind of like him is his I and ABK combo is 17, which is near. It's not otherworldly, but it's towards the top end. I spent 7 seasons trying to figure out how Mike Love kept playing with a 5 contact right-hander and continuing to be good, and that was how he did it. So, against righties, he's not going to hit the ball hard, and he's not going to run. But I think he'll continue to walk because he can't. He doesn't strike out much, and he does walk, and his contact, something has to happen, right? It's that thing where I don't know. I think I like him a little better. Toronto is a better prospect as a player. I agree with that. But on the other hand, he's kind of in dog shit. In the league so far. His ratings are better, but he hasn't been really impressive. And the one thing I don't know is how underdeveloped was he. So I don't know. I think this was fine. You kind of have it as a clear win for Wichita. I think it's kind of one of those, whatever, it's fine. And again with Brooklyn, he would have been their 10th best reliever. Cool.
So one go back is I completely whiffed. So Toronto is tagged as a reliever right now at 9.76. So he'd be a 7.76 starter probably. That's my fault.
Or 8.
Yeah, maybe. But to your point about him not playing well thus far, this is the first year that he's full developed.
Okay.
He came in at 20 with Nashville in 2033. He was a 6.76.
Oh, boo! That was bad. Even for me, who usually gets your guys in the majors as fast as you can before they get hurt and won't be able to play anymore, like that's too soon. Okay, well, we don't disagree strongly. We disagree.
Yeah.
That's important. I barely care about this next one. Mind if I run through it really fast?
Sure.
I think this is a marginally slanted in San Fernando's favor trade. Pedro Garza probably won't matter much at all. He's 22. He's been okay. Like last year is probably his high water mark, being kind of a league average bat. Maybe not high water, but close to it. And he gained a point of contact after he was traded. But I just I don't get excited about 7 contact righties that don't have. Especially when he was traded. When he was traded, he was a 6 contact righty with 6i and 6 ABK, and that is a quad player. Like it just is. He's gotten a little better than that, and he will at the worst be a good platoon bat. And if he is the 8th or 9th best bat on your team, he is serviceable. And I guess that's why San Fernando wins this one, because Terry Rowland is a trap. He has a horrible reverse right split. He is a quad A bat against right-handed pitching. And he's not an amazing defender at third, not good enough to make up for it. And then Francisco Hernandez doesn't matter at all. On the other hand, I won't hurt Montreal too much because they had a log jam in corner outfield spots. Anything you have to add to that?
So we're gonna get to disagree again.
Oh, awesome! Cool. What's up?
So I agree. So I put Push sort of irrelevant, but makes sense for both sides. So I think we're in agreement there. I'm going to disagree with you, though. In Garza over Rowland, I would take Rowland over Garza, and here's why. So, A, Drew Zod has ruined me forever on right-hand bats with reverse splits.
That's
which Garza has.
That's fair. It works horribly sometimes. I get you. I see that. And Rowland...
But,
yeah, okay.
But B, you call him a platoon bat, and with those ratings, he's a platoon bat. He's not a starter. Except the reverse split takes him, depreciates his value as a platoon bat. Whereas Rowland, he's gone all fucking in on it, he's going to end up 8.8, 7.76 potentially against left-handed pitching with pretty good defense. I mean, a 10 arm and 6 range at third base isn't insignificant. So, if you're looking at both of these as platoon bats, I'm taking Rowland all day. I'm actually excited.
Especially if you train Rowland in left field and right field.
Yeah, and you get a little super sub.
Okay, I can see that. But what about the fact that according to VBA scouting of personality, teammates avoid Rowland after a loss? Does that mean anything? Do you care about it?
Personality class unknown. So yeah. Low leader, low work ethic, low intelligence. Yeah, he's a dick. But he's got high loyalty, which might keep him from getting one of those actual definitions.
Well, I mean, but Pedro Garza's a dog lover.
That's true. Yeah.
Seems like something.
They don't specify what kind of dog though.
Right, like if it's Chihuahuas or little purse dogs.
Yeah.
You like him less.
I'd avoid him after a loss if he brought his Chihuahua into the dressing room.
You little bastards. Okay, yeah. We're dithering on it. You're right. I can see what you're saying there. I'm with you a little more now. Push though, still push, because who cares?
Yeah.
We're back to you. You made a deal with Montreal. Montreal decided they were going to pick up all the expensive relievers this year. I'm not sure that's the best strategy, but that's what they did. I liked this trade when I saw it. I think it's fair, especially with you retaining part of Velasquez's salary. Velasquez is good. He is one of the handful of arms you would say is in the conversation for best reliever in the league. He probably wants way too much for an extension. I don't know how much he wants, but won't sign it, unless it comes down to around $7 million. But even then, I would have questions about a 34-year-old. But he's good. I think the shortstop you got is potentially a Swiss Army knife, but on the other hand, like, he has one power, and he's a big team. And something's got to happen there for that guy to be someone you want in your roster. But it could.
Right.
And then Moling is potentially a great pickup. And I think that's what makes this about even. Like, if Velasquez wasn't, this would be an overpay for Montreal if Velasquez wasn't so damn good. But he is. And Moling's only 18. He's got a ways to go. He's young enough that he could bump this. This is one of those guys that could bump up to 10, 7, 8, with enough velocity. His fastball, throwing 96 to 98, he's got a 10 fastball, so any more velocity, and that just goes off the charts. He's showing a bit of a split right now, but with that cutter, it's not going to get awful. And like you mentioned, I like the slider cutter combo scheme, so I think he's high upside, but also risky. So I thought this was pretty fair. And I'm going to have to get used to, one of the things that's tough is I'm going to have to get used to the prospects they all look so damn good now that I think like 3-4 seasons ago, or a couple of versions of OTP ago, this would have been a huge overpay. But an 8-7-6, 18-year-old, they're just all over the place now. And most of them, hopefully, will continue to lump. Otherwise, the league will be way too talented. But I hope yours doesn't lump. So.
And he'll probably, let's be honest with ourselves, he'll probably be traded long before
he ever gets.
He either sells or lumps.
Right, you'll find one of the teams that's like right-handed pitcher and right-handed batter friendly, and dangle Moling out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Is that kind of?
I agree. I thought it was fair. So as we were discussing it, me and Montreal and I, one thing that was in the back of my head was, well, Velasquez is a guarantee to get me a Type A free agency at the end of the year. So, like, I really needed a prospect that was better than, the guys that I saw last year in the round 1 supplemental, and last year in the round supplemental, because last year's draft was amazing, were really, really good. So it was kind of Moling or bust from Montreal's system for me, to be honest.
And I think
because I saw the starter conversion potential.
And a lot of that will depend on what we see in the drafts going forward, right? Like, are they going to continue to be this good? Who knows?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's definitely risk to it. It could very well be a 2035 when it was 10 players deep, and suddenly your Type A free agents didn't get you anything.
Right. So this is weird how this ordered up, because I feel like our trade was not next, but I guess it's next. This was the best. This was great. This was the best trade ever. Like, I'm absurdly pleased about this, but I was already talking to Stever guys about something, and like, he didn't mention anything about needing. We weren't talking about this at all, and I'm just like talking to Stever and clicking on the boards, and there's this like Huntsville looking for a right-handed reliever, wants to trade for a left-handed reliever. Ideally, this guy. I'm like, I have that guy. I have 5 of that guy.
Yeah.
I have no left-handed relievers. Yeah. This is perfect, too.
I honestly wonder how many people in the league, because I ended up just deleting the thread because, in 5 minutes we had a deal. I wonder how many people in the league even knew I posted that. Like, you would have had to be online, actually, like, clicking a refresh.
They're literally, and Suarez, like, apparently, not Suarez, the guy I gave you, he's weird. He had a little tiny lump. Baez lumped his motion a tad. He was probably right at that borderline, so he probably just went from 7 to just under 7, and I don't give a crap about that, because he's still 9.76 versus lefties, and that's what I got him for. But they're almost identical. Like, almost making the same amount of money, almost like it was, they're both got a year left on their contract. It was just like, hey, perfect. That was good. Pat ourselves.
Yeah, I had 1 right-hander and 5 left-handers in my bullpen for that trade.
Yeah, and I had 6 left-handers, 6 right-handers, and 1 left-hander. So that's to the point where Steven literally probably picked up Fernando Moreno just to hit my bullpen. Now this is what he gets. Okay, so Mexico City, New Orleans. we don't see this happen that much anymore, right? Like guys in their prime being traded for a haul. It's kind of nice. Like it's nice to have a big one like this. It's pretty. I like it. So this is the Mexico City got. I don't know how to say the first name. Clearly, the last one's May or me. HS. I don't know how that works out. There's some things in Chinese I just don't know. Lots of them actually, but this one specifically. What do you think of him? Like, do you think he is last year's nearly 7-win version, or do you think he's the 4-win guy he was for the 3 years before that, or somewhere in between?
I don't think he's last year, but he was a 900 OPS the year before that, and that's still pretty darn good. So, I would probably peg him as like a 900 and not a. There's very few people in the league who are putting up over a 1 OPS consistently, and I would venture a guess that they're probably not right-handed bats.
Right, and and the guys that are doing it are half of the ones that small sample are probably only doing it because they're in a platoon and they're not facing. They're left-handed bats that are not facing left-handed pitchers.
Right.
So, but
he's fantastic. I mean, he's probably. I mean, it's got to be at least like top 3 catchers.
Yeah.
I didn't do an exhaustive search, but I'm pretty. He might be number 1. I don't know, but I feel pretty good about not being 3 guys better.
That was my initial reaction. He might be the best at his age. I think this season it's still a push as to whether him or Arriola or Hank Brewer, puts together the better season. But as a young guy that's this good, he's not super young. He's 26, but he's got 4 years of his best years left.
Yeah.
I don't know. You think the
He has a lot of at bats for a catcher too. 531 last year. I feel like that's a lot. No. That only leaves like 100 or so for the backup, right?
Well, it's pretty good. Like it's pretty impressive. I mean, he's great. He's legitimately great. Mexico City needed to get another bat. They didn't need to, but like that was the go from contender to really strong contender. I think it's a great fit. Like it upgraded their weakest position. What do you think of his extension?
I was just gonna ask you that. That's a tough one, man. And Mexico City made another trade, and I think it was almost directly because of this trade, which left a bad taste in my mouth a little bit on this one. But we'll talk about that when we get to it. But it's tough. It's a tough extension.
I don't mind the. This is one of those ones where it's just like, do I want to pay him $20 million a year? Yeah, I can see that for like a premier catcher. And it just looked like Mexico City said, screw it, I'll just, he wants more money. I don't want to be paying him $28 million in 4 years, so I'll just, throw a Brinks truck at him right now and get the average annual value up. And I do this, so I don't, I don't think this is, other than the trade that he made earlier, I don't think this is going to hurt him. The trade you mentioned earlier, I don't think this is going to hurt him too much. I mean, it won't work out.
Yeah, but even the $20 million is a little tough. If for no other reason than catchers aren't 100% full time players.
Yeah,
so even when he's logging 530 at bats, which I think is a lot for starting catcher, more power to him. That's still 25 games worth of at bats he's missing.
Yeah, it is not. Might get 3. I get what Ron's saying about market forces. And we are to some degree trying to mimic an MLB model where the stars are getting paid more and more, and the quote unquote middle class of baseball players are getting squeezed. But I have a lot of concern about the size of these deals, only in that you still got to play 26 other guys that aren't dog shit. And they're all going to want some money. And our cap's not going up. So, it'd be one thing if we all got everybody on board and revenues went up a ton and we wanted to talk about raising the cap, with the understanding that wouldn't make the demands go up. I don't know if it would or not. But I kind of with you. Like, I have concern about lots of these deals for lots of monies for long periods of time just because it's tough. It's tough to. I don't have a single player that I'm going to be paying more than I think $12 million in 2 years, and I can't keep the team I have together
Right.
I don't know how you're supposed to do that paying people $20 million.
Well, yeah, I mean, in baseball, and you get those 6 years of cost control. So it's unlike any other sport. Like basketball, I mean, high first round draft picks get $10 million a year annual value contracts right out of the gate. Same thing with football if you're a really high draft pick. But baseball, even Mike Trout made $500,000 his first 3 seasons, right? So the way you sustain a good team is having a mix of cost control guys and overpriced veterans,
Right.
for lack of a better term.
But even with the cost control guys, it's getting tough, and I just think it's less fun.
Yeah.
And the arbs aren't cheap anymore, and that's fine. Like, I don't have a problem with arbitration being more realistic and these guys arbitrating for more money. But on the other hand, like, I don't know, they really do have 6 cost control years anymore. You kind of got 4.5, and then depending on how well they played, that 6 year might almost be near free agent prices. So
yeah. So I enjoy the model because I think it's harder to stay on top. So regardless of league, this league is a more challenging league than most, but whether it's an easy league or a hard league like this one, I find it pretty easy to become a team competing for a wild card. Like I turned, the dumpster fire took over into a wild card competitor in one offseason, right? But it's really hard to go from that to a very good team. And it's exponentially harder to keep that very good team very good for a long while, right? So I enjoy that because if I do manage to make my team one of those very good teams, like a California or a Rockville or somebody else, I don't want to just have it be, easy street where, I got my core together and now I can just keep extending them for the next decade until they decline. Like I want to have to make hard decisions about who I really want to invest in, and I want to have to, continually make trades for younger players who are going to come up and be cost controlled, even if it means giving up, the guys that I've been getting attached to for the last,
And that's where it is for me. I appreciate the challenge aspect of it. I just get attached to players, and I don't like trading, which is funny as the guy who reviews trades, but I just don't. I don't enjoy doing it. Like
it's not fair.
It's a lot of work. Maybe that's just what I'm just lazy. I don't know. It's just trades are work, man. And they take like a comfortability with like rejection and people like thinking massively different than you do and getting past that. And I think it's just a spot where I'm not great at those skills. It's just not my skill set. It makes me uncomfortable the whole damn time because I'm either like sitting here like I am probably either horribly offending this guy or he thinks I'm a rude. But we're probably not even on this. Like one of these two things is going on. What do you think about the return for New Orleans?
So Gomez is an interesting prospect. Not my particular cup of tea. I already mentioned guys with low eyes. He also doesn't have the power that Leyva has. It's still good. 10 contacts a lot. It's really raw 18, so probability that he ends up at his potential is probably pretty low. And so if he ends up at like 8, 9, 7, 3, like is that a good player?
Right. The one thing you keep mentioning, and I agree with you because I don't like him either, but I almost think like we're just gonna have to take what we get because the guys that are coming in the league now are all 3 and 4 eye guys, and then they all lump 1 point while they're developing. I guess again, OTP's looking at Major League Baseball where people are striking out a whole bunch, and you're not seeing a lot of selection out of some of these younger kids that are coming up. I get it, but yeah, I don't like him either. And I don't know if you've had that experience too, but most of my guys, like they're lumping 1 point a eye before they get these kids, regardless of what the other stuff does. So
yeah. I haven't noticed that.
I've had a lot of it. Maybe I've just been unlucky, but like been a lot of guys, even guys that'll develop, like say I've got like an 8, like take your 8.74 bat. Like I've had guys that'll develop to like 7.64 out of that, and then they'll dump down to 3.I before
Really?
the other two.
Yeah, it seems a little unlucky to me. At least I haven't experienced that. I don't know.
Oh, cool.
I feel like I've been pretty fortunate lately with development, though. Like, I mean, Imai set out the entire season last year, and actually, not only did he not lose potential, but he also gained some overall while he was out the entire season. I don't think I've ever seen that before. So I'm feeling pretty fortunate lately. But so back on the guys they got. So Corbel, I mean, they need to make him a shortstop yesterday because I don't think his bat's going to play as a second base. But again, he's 17 and very raw. And if he's a plus defender at shortstop, which I don't necessarily see him as plus right now, but maybe if he bumps range one or something, I don't know. He could be something, at least like a decent starter. And then I like the starters. Garcia gives me that Soong vibe.
Well,
although his fastball's a little
his
better.
fastball's not garbage. Like, my problem with Soong is just that his fastball's garbage. The rest of it is fine. Right. I agree. I like Garcia.
And I like Pacey. Pacey's listed as a starter. Yeah, I like him. He's right now he's showing the potential for a 9.88 versus left-handed bat split as a starter with the cheat code slider cutter combo.
Right.
So I like him a lot.
And he could be he's got all. I mean, he's slider, splitter, cutter. He's nice. He could be a strong number 3, like, kind of better than he looks, sort of guy.
Yeah, I agree.
The one thing about him is that he needs to start moving that control. You know, he's 20 and it's a 3. That needs to start moving, or it becomes worrisome.
Yeah, he turns 21 in 4 days, actually.
But no, it seems like about right though, doesn't it? Like, it's risky. I think if I were Jim, I would have liked maybe 2 guys Pacey's age, and 2 teenagers, rather than like 3 teenagers. But they're good teenagers. Like, if these,
right.
If one of those 3 develops, do you think it's okay?
Well,
let's assume
do you like Corbel?
What's that?
Do you like Corbel?
Corbel, I think probably. I don't know, man. Like, I echo your thoughts about him.
Okay.
But he does have value. I mean, even if this guy ends up being like a 350 at bat, plays all over the infield, giving your guys day off, there's use to that. There's utility there. You got to have those guys, and he could be a very good version of that. And then that's probably his worst case.
Yeah.
Well, no, his worst case is not developing at all. But supposing he's developing, and I do like Garcia and Gomez a good deal. And I'm kind of the mind that if I can get any kind of a plus bat at catcher, I don't care what it is. I just want it to not be a shitty hitting catcher. I don't know. I think it seems about right. Like, it seems like a decent amount, with the exception that it could all implode and they get nothing out of it. But that's the risk you always take, right?
Yeah, I felt the same way. I thought it was fine value.
Hot takes.
But the extension is really if I can offer a hot take, I guess. If I was Mexico and Jim came back and said that that's what the extension demands were, I would have fought to take one of those pitchers out of the deal.
Yeah, but on the other hand, like, May wanting to be extended might be what lets Brad get away with sending back a bunch of teenagers.
Yeah, that's true. They were mostly very raw. Yeah, that's a good point.
So, yeah, I think it's nice to see one like that, like a big name move with a good return, where there's not a whole lot of, this seems okay. Like, it's not exciting to talk about necessarily, but it's nice to see a trade that just looks right. New Orleans, Montreal. I know you had a real you and I talked about reaction about this when this came out. I backed off my insanity on it somewhat because I really didn't like it. So I'll let you start with this one.
Oh, okay. You just threw me for a loop. I thought you were going to start. Okay.
I still don't like it, but not like to the degree that I hated it.
So did I help talk you off the ledge, or was it just the passage?
Well, I think what I realized in talking to you and some other people, again, spoiler alert, the guy who reviews, non-spoiler, the guy who reviews trade podcasts talks to people constantly about other people's trades. I'm always doing this, so it's not like this was a special occasion to be talking to other people about a trade. And I just hated it. Just absolutely hated it. But I think so much of that is this bias I have towards paying relievers. I don't care about relievers. I don't care. I don't ever want to pay relievers. What I realized looking at this for a few days is the reason I'm that way is because I don't care about drafting bats. And so I always draft so many damn pitchers that I always have relievers. Always.
Right.
And so I just think that in my model, paying for relievers is stupid. But it might not be in other people's. That's what kind of got me off the ledge a little bit.
I don't disagree that it's not often the best allocation of your resources, especially when you give the high dollar contracts. I know I gave Velasquez a really big deal last offseason, but that was a particular situation where I didn't have much else to spend it for, right? So, like if you have a young up-and-coming team and you want to go overpay a reliever for a couple of years, like, yeah, go do it. But if, in Montreal's situation where they've been good for a while and they're trying to continue to be good, having multiple relievers making a lot of money might not work out well in the long run. So I guess I definitely see where you're coming from there. In terms of the trade, so Ortiga's, he's 27. He had 5.6 WAR aggregate over the last 2 years, 2.18, 3.0 FIP respectively. So he's good. Like he's in that Velasquez, realm of goodness, right? But he's expiring. So you're either going to lose him, or you're probably, as is your biggest fear, going to need to give him a really shitty contract for a reliever. So that's something you got to keep in mind. But with what they gave up to get him, and this might be, as we talked about offline, this might be a lot of my biases, but I don't love a lot of what was given up. So let's look at, I'll go in reverse order of who I think is the least valuable first. So Hamilton as a catcher, good defense, that's great. But he's got 2 eye and 4 gap. So he's, with 7 contacts as a right-hand bat, maybe you're looking at like a 260, 270 average, 9 power, maybe like 30 home runs. I mean, I think he's going to be scraping for a 700 OPS, honestly. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up as a platoon kind of guy in his career. What do you think about that?
So I'm a little higher on him. I completely agree about you with that. It's just that, he looks like a legitimately solid defender, and I think that the bar for catcher offense is so low. There aren't too many positions where I'd be okay with a guy hitting 255 and having a 280 on base percentage and giving me 25 home runs. Most of the time I don't want that anywhere, but I'll take it a catcher. I think that's the other reason, I came down on this a little bit, is that these guys are wartier than I thought they were. He's definitely has problems. He is going to strike out a shit ton. And I think that's one of the things that, the offensive ratings are all massively interrelated. You have to do something. You have to get a hit. You have to walk. You have to strike out. You have to you have to put the ball in play, or walk or strike out. Right? Those are the things that are happening. And if you're never going to walk, even with a 680K, your strikeouts go up because something has to happen. That's kind of like back to Morion, whoever that was, and you trying to figure out why Mike Love stayed so good for so long.
Right.
It's because when you have I and AVK ratings that are both out of this world, having a low contact isn't as bad because, again, something has to happen. And he's never going to walk. So his strikeouts will be considerably worse than you would expect 680K. I'm kind of with you. I think he could easily end up being a platoon even if he develops all the way. And he might not develop all the way. Yeah, that's fair.
So next up is Dominguez. He's got the defense to be, a good, I think maybe better than good defensive second baseman. He's got okay speed and stealing base, if that's your thing. The bat potential, like it's okay, but it's not exciting. And then you look, and he's 20 years old with 4.12 ratings. I think I would be extremely surprised if he fully develops at this point. And even if he does, I don't see him as much more than like slightly above replacement level starter.
See, that's where
average.
That's where I think that he could. I get the concerns about developing. I think if he does develop, I think he's a 2 to 3 win second baseman. I love switch hitters though. If you give me a switch hitter that can run, I am so tremendously happy because I think OOTP, in its attempts to mimic the stats of Major League Baseball, leverages platoon advantages entirely too much. And all we have is a league of people who can only hit pitchers that throw from one side. Like the rarest players in our leagues are guys who can handle both righties and lefties with any degree of similarity between those abilities. And switch hitters in this league can. The guy that I always think of when I'm like, there's been a ton of guys when I came to this league where I was like, why is that guy any good? And what I finally realized is they're all switch hitters, and the one that I always remember is, and Dominguez isn't nearly as good as this guy, but I'm forgetting his name. The dude that Fred had in Mexico City forever was second base and then shifted over to first place.
Juan Pablo?
Yeah, Juan Pablo. Juan Pablo never should have been hitting as well as he did, but again, he doesn't have a platoon disadvantage. And so if you tell me I can have a 7 contact, 5 power, 5 high, pretty solid ABK middle infielder that doesn't have a platoon, a horrible platoon split, I love it. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm a little higher, but again, his development track is awful. So, yeah, he could be nothing. That's probably why I'm higher on Rangel than you are.
I'm not high on Rangel. But I'll let you go because I think you do like him better than me. I just wanted to clarify that I like.
No, it's the same thing, right? This is a pretty similar bat, if not slightly better. You know, he's a little faster. ABK is a little bit better. Power's a little bit better. He looks like a legitimately good above average center fielder. And then the biggest thing for me with Rangel is that like center fielders that can defend and hit are not easy to come by. They're just not. Like, this is where the star ratings are bullshit. Like they don't take position scarcity into account at all.
Right.
To me, Rangel's like he's on the short list of like, not short list. There's a long list of players I'd rather have than the ones in my own minors. But he's somebody whose name I know, just because you look around the league to shore up your deficiencies and looking at the problems you're going to have coming down the line and who you think you might be able to trade for or get from somebody. And somebody I remembered is that guy's going to be a good player. Other thoughts about I don't think he's like a 5-win player, but if you tell me I can have I think he's like a 2 to 3 win center fielder. Again, that I would. Yeah. When I looked, I was talking to Randy about some stuff. We only had like 22 4-win batters last year. It was
really.
Yeah, it was weird. Like it was like there were like I think when it was like when I was looking for because I tried to think I could trade a bunch of prospects for I wanted like a 4-win player, and then I looked, I'm like, there weren't any. I'm asking for way too much. I think when I looked at 5-win bats, there were 12. So, if you're telling me I can get a 2 to 3 win center fielder out of somebody, I'd trade like a 3.5. I would trade a 3.5 win first baseman for a 2 win center fielder if they're the same age and cost controlled any day of the week, over and over again.
You can probably replace that first baseman.
Right.
Terribly.
Maybe not with another 3.5 win first baseman, but you can pull a 2 win first baseman out of your butt easily.
It's funny you bring that WAR up because I feel like I've been noticing lately that DHs and first basemen are getting kind of extra screwed lately on WAR. I'll see him with a 900 OPS, 2 WAR or something. Well, and I know this is one of your hobby horses, but I just feel like in this version it's been worse than in previous versions. Like they did
Oh,
something to tweak the calculation.
it's so
Have you
good.
noticed that recently being exacerbated?
I haven't paid attention. I just think that like we've been screwed. Like I think that this is totally different. So like Baseball Prospectus just put out a new offensive metric called Deserved Runs Created Plus. It works kind of like WRC Plus does. The range is a little bit narrower. The cool thing about it is they give a standard deviation of like we're giving you this number, but the real number is probably between these two error bars, which is kind of nice to see. Only because it reminds us that like the thing that we all know but forget that like if someone guy had 4.5 WAR is just a modulation of rated runs created plus essentially, or WOBA really, but they're all they're just different mechanics on the same thing. But if you see a player that's like 4 WAR and then one that's 4.3 WAR, they're the same. You can't tell me one of those with any sort of argument that one of them was better than the other. You don't know that. There's that much error in the stat.
Yeah.
So it's nice that Deserved Runs Created has error bars where they tell you, we know it's in here somewhere. It's in between these things, and some of them are really wide and some are really narrow. But when you look at like when they put out their leaderboards, power hitters all jumped up. Like it's just first basemen suddenly started to look like we used to think they did. 20 years ago when they were all the best hitters in the league. Whereas, like, these last, like you said, these last 5, 6, in OTP specifically, maybe I haven't really paid a ton of attention, but it just feels like overall, it just feels like we're being, like, guys that are getting on base 35% of the time and hitting 30 home runs weren't valued that highly if they played first base or DH, and that's ridiculous. That's a really good hitter.
Right.
So, I don't know.
But I used to not agree with you as much because like I'd be sitting there back, in my last tenure in Huntsville, and I'd be looking at Moreno with like 7 WAR or something, Like, what are you talking about? My guy's, got a 1 OPS and he's getting 7 WAR. But like Rutledge, I looked at his history, and not last season, but the season before, he had an 870 OPS. Over a full season's worth of at bats and only like 1.6 WAR. It's like, 870 OPS, like that's not nothing.
Good, right? Like that's really good.
Yeah.
You should care about that.
Yeah. And then he only upped like a 910 last year, and it was like a 3.7 WAR. It's like, so I don't know if there's a huge league-wide fluctuation, but was that 40 points of OPS, like a 5% increase, got you more than double the WAR? I don't know.
I don't know. I think that, anybody who knows anything about WAR will tell you that it's a noisy stat. It's not perfect. It's meant to be more predictive than descriptive. It's a ballpark estimate, but it's the best you're going to do for like a single number. What did they contribute? But it's so easy. And I think we all do this. It's so easy to like just take it as the end all be all of what a player is, and it's absolutely accurate and correct.
Well, yeah, I think people kind of think I'm the WAR guy because I use it a lot. I personally use it as shorthand because like I don't want to list like 8 stats. Like I just want to be like, oh yeah, I got a 4 WAR guy. I feel pretty good about that. Just be done with the sentence.
Well, I think that's what a lot of us do. But then we hear everybody else using it as a shorthand, and we assume that they're, just it gains momentum like on its own. It just becomes like it's so easy to misuse, or it's so easy to not misuse, but other people assume that you're misusing it. Anyway, back to this trade. So Dan Clapper doesn't matter. Can we agree that he just doesn't count at all, and no one should care about him ever?
I already forgot he existed.
Yeah. So, what do you think then overall about the trade?
So, I mean, overall, I think New Orleans won. I don't think it was a landslide or a blowout, or it wasn't San Fernando and Nashville or anything like that. But they won. Anytime you get 3 guys that, maybe I'm not super high on them, but anytime you get 3 guys that have value, like these guys do in terms of the trademark, for a reliever on an expiring contract, you gotta feel good about that. And I look, and again, just because I'm not high on Hamilton doesn't mean there's probably like 10 owners in this league that would look at Hamilton and be like, oh yeah, 9 arm, 9 power, he's toolsy, you know?
Right.
And they're willing to trade something. So like I look at Hamilton, Dominguez, and Rangel, and I'm like, what else could you have gotten for that package? And I don't even have to look far because New Orleans has been marketing Amaral for a really long time. Like, do you think they would have gave him Amaral for that package? I don't see why not. You know, it seems like a fair deal for Amaral, and he's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
and to me, with the extension that Ortega signed, he's a negative value. I would be looking to get out of that. And I think that's the
is there an extension on it?
Yeah, before the deal, he was signed to an extension that was 10.5, 12, 12.5, player opt out, 13, 13, 13.
Oh,
it's awful. Like it's potentially crippling. Like it's okay this year. That 10 next year is probably okay. But then you're talking about a guy that's getting to be, 30 years old, and 30-year-old relievers making $12 million is, oh. And I always say these things, but somehow people still manage to unload these contracts. So what do I know? And then they go to Wichita and retire. Stu gets to get out for a jail-free card. Handshaking. But that's the thing that puts this over the top for me is just the extension before it. There is the talent the player brings to your club, but then there's also what he does to that very, to the 100. I don't know what the actual number is. I think it's about 90. It's a little over 90 million that you have to play with. One of the little, if you're trying to figure out why it always seems like you don't have enough money, or you're always a player short, and you don't have $110 million in cap space because roster spots cost $500K. So if you have 40-ish players on your roster, you spent $20 million. You got $90 million to work with. 11% of the entire cap space to one reliever. There's a situation where it works, like you said last year, when you don't have a lot of young guys you're paying, you're trying to add value. But I think when you're in the middle of the competition, when there were good players, it's going to make you make some tough decisions later on.
Yeah.
We got one left, right? And this is the one that you feel strongly about. So
I do. A little bit of the wind was taken in my sails because Baez got it hurt for the year.
Yeah, but we're evaluating, like you said, right, based on what happened at the time.
Right. So let's look back. Let's look past that. They still have him for 2 more years cheap after this, right?
Right.
So assuming he doesn't lump from the injury, they're still going to get something out of him. But okay, it's Mexico City. Let me talk to you. You just dealt 4 really good prospects for May, right? Like you're probably like going for it, right? So then you turn around and trade your second best pitcher coming off of 5.6 WAR season for chaff. I mean, I don't like anything you got back really. But even if I liked what you got back, I don't understand the thought process unless that stupid extension for May, which is costing you $35 million next year, was going to keep you from paying Baez 8.5. I mean, Baez at 8.5. It's like, God, that's like one of the best contracts in the league value wise. Even in a down year, he's putting up, a 4.15 FIP in 2035 in a down year as a starter. Yeah, I just like Baez a lot. I don't know why you dealt him if competing is your goal. And I don't know why you thought what you're getting back was worth giving it up. Like, Sagas Dizabol is garbage. I'm not going to mention him again. Flores, so his one saving grace is that 11 outfield range. Like, that might, that's very rare. So he might be the kind of guy that, gives you double-digit ZR and just gives you all his value defensively. Because he's going to need to. Because I don't think that bat is going to give you much value at all. I mean, 3 power, 4 eye, 9 contact. So he's a 320 average, maybe? I mean, he's right-handed, so that might be a stretch. Let's say he's a 320 average. Well, he's probably going to be a 340 OBP. and what do you say, like 120 ISO? So now you're at a 440 slugging. So you're looking at a 750-ish, 760-ish OPS if everything works out right. And his running is almost a detriment. If you ascribe to the theory that run speed equals steal frequency and stolen base ability equals steal success rate, an 11 speed and a 6 stealing ability is about the worst combination you could possibly have in a player. So it means he thinks he's a lot better than he really is, and he's going to get thrown out at a stupid clip at a high quantity stolen base rate. Yeah, I just don't like him. I don't know if you could tell. I don't like him.
I think I like him a little better than you do, but I think the way I would describe him is kind of a poor man's Abdel Wahab Kamade, who I think already is an overrated player. But it really comes down to how well that glove helps him out. I really do like the glove.
Yeah.
I think he might actually be a little bullish on what he's going to do in terms of hitting. I would see him more as like like 305 to 310, 330 on base percentage. I'd see him more in the 7. But my park is so hard on right-handers that I probably am just way off about what right-handed bats do. But I still like him again because I just think center fielders that can defend are not that easy to come by. The one thing I'll say about the running, and I don't know if you've had a different experience than me, my manager lets me control running. So I've got a couple guys like this. I just put their steals to 0. I just set their internal game strategy to not run ever, and it seems to work out okay for me. I've got I don't have one that's 11.64. I had somebody that was 10.7 something, and I just told them to never steal, and they did. They got thrown out one time the whole season, and they didn't have any stolen bases.
Okay,
but I think you can, if your manager lets you do it, you can mitigate that. The thing that concerns me is the base running instincts, actually more than the steal ability. I don't know what happens when you have an 11 speed for base running instincts. That could be bad. I was just going to get thrown out at third, every time he hits a double. I don't know what.
Or he'll be the kind of guy who gets caught between bases a lot, maybe because he thinks he can steal, get 2 bases on a single.
Right? Yeah. I don't know how it's going to go.
He's fine. I mean, all right, 7 OPS center fielder with plus defense. That's not nothing. I guess I'm just annoyed because I really like Baez. He's a very good pitcher on an amazing contract, and you traded him to the guy I'm competing with. Maybe that's what makes him.
Because Tyler was getting some holes in his pitching staff, and this just fixed. Although he's hurt now, he's out for the year. So
here, take an ace for nothing. Oh God.
Yeah, no, I see that. The other thing about this too is that pitching's hard to get right now, right? I don't know that I've been in this league and pitching is this hard to get because my team is not that good. Offensively, I am. Mm-hmm. I don't know what happened last year. It was amazing to score all those runs. It shouldn't have happened. It was fantastic. I'm back at 12th in the league in runs scored. I think I'm a little better than that, but I don't think that's. I think that's closer to reality than being first, like I was last year. And I'm pretty confident I'm going to win 95 to 100 games this year because I have my 5th starter is New Zealand, who is a 9.77 lefty. And I'm hoarding these guys, and people keep asking me about them, but I don't think there's a higher value in the league right now than 5th starters. I thought this was a fairly straightforward trade, but listening to you, I kind of get it that you think maybe Mexico City undersold Baez a little bit.
It's just such a good contract.
Yeah.
A 3 to 4 WAR pitcher for $8.5 million. I don't know.
Right. That's
what really gets me.
Second
his
year
market value is
price.
probably what was that?
It's second year arbitration price.
Right. Yeah. If he was on the open market, he would have got a $14 million deal probably, and then you'd be like, okay, he's not as tradable as an asset, But for $8.5 million, he should have carried, some really solid value in a trade negotiation.
So at this point, Kyle and I have covered all of the trades that occurred during the offseason. We do have another segment in which we talked about some of the bigger trades that happened during the 2036 season, but I will save that for another upload as this is running a little bit long. Apologies for the rambling during the last couple trades. It's hard to stay on task for anything much more than about 35, 45 minutes. So usually by the end, we're just kind of all over the place. But I hope you all enjoyed listening, and there will be a little bit more if I ever get around to editing and posting it. Thanks a lot. Happy Brewstering.